What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. In today's video we're going to be making a knife with this old rusty file. Now this file I've been using for a couple years and I pretty much got a new one and I don't really use it anymore. It kind of worn out a little bit, so we're going to go on ahead and give it a new life by turning it into a knife. So I don't have a particular style I'm going to make. I'm just going to start forging out a point and really go from there. I'm just going to work the steel and kind of go with the flow. What I do want to do is incorporate as much of the file as I can. That way there's very little waste and I can make a pretty decent sized knife. One of the things that I noticed pretty quickly early on is the fact that obviously this is an unknown steel. It's a hard carbon steel and it's very hardenable because it's being used for a file. So it's definitely good steel that you can make knives. A lot of people say that file steel is, one of the best steels to make knives out of because it is extremely hardenable. But that is besides the point. I noticed that I have to forge it pretty hot because it was starting to make minor dents on the face of my anvil if I was forging it at a dull red or even a brighter red. It was kind of starting to deform a little bit. So I cranked up the heat on the forge and I started forging out. Here I marked a few lines and that is pretty much roughly what I wanted for my edge, which is 8 inches. And then I partitioned out another line for 5 inches just to give me a rough idea how long I want the handle. Unfortunately, I did make the handle a little bit on the bigger side or the longer side, which you'll notice farther into the video, but I ended up keeping it that way because of something else I ended up doing to the knife later on in the forging session. Now for this forging session, I really wanted to do as much as I could by hammer, so I'm drawing out the blade with my cross peen and I'm trying to get as much width as I can, but I'm also not trying to distort the actual lines that the file has as much as I can. I'm trying to leave a little bit on there because I want it to be in the final knife as well. If I'm not mistaken, the original width of the file was 1 inch or maybe 1.25 inches. I think it was 1.25 inches. And so I don't really have to draw out too much to get a decent width for my knife. As long as I have 1.5 and up, I'm pretty happy with that. So I didn't work too long on or too hard on drawing out the width. And once I was done drawing out the width, I went back to my square and round hammer and I'm cleaning everything up, straightening out the knife because it bananaed quite a bit while I was doing that forging. And the plan for this knife is to also do as little grinding as I can. I want to keep as much of what makes it look like a file as a file, so I'm really trying to avoid as much of the actual grinding on the finished form of the knife as much as possible. So I'm trying to get as much forged by hand as I can. Obviously on the edge there is going to be deformities that I do have to grind straight. That's normal, and that's not going to have any of the actual lines from the file, so that doesn't matter. But I do want to keep the spine as unblemished as I can. Obviously there will be some forging marks. I do have to rearrange the spine whenever it bananas too much. And here is the other part I was talking about that I was gonna do, which is I'm gonna forge out the end and make a pretty long little rat tail, which then I'll circle around and forge into a holder so you can put it up on a wall or hang it from a nail or something of the sort. And that was one of the original ideas I had when I saw the end of the file. I figured that I could draw it out and make it into a circle so we can hang it from. That's why I didn't forge out more of the tang or cut it off, because it was a little bit on the long side. Now I had taken into account the fact that I needed to have my handle a certain size and then the rest I was going to use for drawing out, but unfortunately I messed up and I left too much on the tang, and therefore it ended up being a little bit on the long side. So this knife will be extremely well for people with bigger hands. I guess it doesn't really matter. You're gonna hold the knife in a pinch grip most of the time, and if you want to use it in a way where you have more leverage, you can always grab it by the back of the knife and swing that bad boy, even though this is more of a kitchen knife, not really a chopper. Nonetheless, I digress. I am working on trying to get that little circle I was talking about earlier, trying to make that ring. But since I've never really made one, I kind of didn't really know what to do with the end of the tail. So my original idea was just to roll it around into a circle and take that little end piece and kind of snake it a little bit. And I didn't like the way the final form of it looked. It kind of looked like it was very not well put together, and it wasn't very circular, so I wasn't really content with that. So I ended up having to rip it apart and restart all over again from scratch. Not ideal, as I was a lot farther into the forging process than I would have thought I was going to be at. But I also did not want to use my hydraulic press for this. I want to kind of do the whole knife. Since I had already done the majority of it by hand, I figured I would finish it all by hand. So I did all the drawing out by hand. And then this is what the final look ended up being, with the little rat tail curled up. And I was fairly happy with that end result. Though I must admit, it took me a lot more work than I would like to admit. Towards the end, I ended up busting out the little 1-pound hammer I got from Housemade. It is a little 1-pound dog head, and it worked a lot better for doing this small work that needed a lot more fine-tuning than with the bigger 3.5-pound forging hammer I use normally for all my forging. Once I was happy with the shape, all I had to do was do a little bit of straightening. It is a rather large knife versus what I normally do, or I should say what I normally make, but it ended up being a pretty nice knife overall. It is long. It's more of a slicer, though the spine of the knife is still pretty thick, since it was originally a file that was probably like a quarter thickness. So the spine ended up staying about the same, and also in the handle portion ended up being rather thick, so it is a little bit on the heftier side. But other than that, it came out very nice, and I'm very happy with it. Here I'm just roughing in the edge, making sure everything's nice and straight and the way it should be to be a functional knife, and pretty much the rest I just leave as is. Now, as some of you may know, if you follow week to week, I have been working on some copper knives, and that project fell behind a little bit, so I ended up having to make different knives as I work on that on the side. And so hopefully that will be out next week. But it goes to show how these more complicated builds take a lot longer, and I have to make videos in between just to keep up my regular schedule. So I hope you enjoy this knife, even though it isn't one of the most extravagant knives that I made. But I had this file lying around, and I figured I would give it a try. So now we're moving on to the handle, and I'm drilling in my holes. Now this is a new drill bit I haven't used before. It is a Diablo drill bit, which I saw at the plumber store the other day. I was looking for some very specific size drill bits. So I saw it and I figured I would give it a try, and these things work great. The file material sometimes has a tendency to harden a little bit whenever you're grinding it, or if you don't quite temper it and cycle it enough. It happened with my bandsaw blade knife that I made last week, and I had a lot of issues, so I gave that a try and I used it for my initial hole. Originally I just bought that for doing smaller holes whenever I needed, but I used it as a pilot hole, and then I went with my regular drill bits, my black oxide ones. These ones are a lot more expensive than the black oxide ones, but I'm gonna try them out and see if they're worth it. Alright guys, so we are out of the temper. The knife came out pretty nice. Slight warpage on the edge, but not too bad. One thing that I don't like about this knife, but I'm not really gonna do anything about it, it just is what it is I made the handle way too long. Like, it's probably an inch longer than it needs to be at bare minimum.
But since I forged in my little spiral thingy there as a holder, I should have taken more material out, but I didn't, and it is what it is. So the handle's a bit long. Other than that, it's a pretty nice little knife. I'm going to go on ahead and put it in some uric acid and let it sit for a while. That way all this crust starts to peel off and we can clean it on with the wire wheel. And we'll have nice clean steel, and we'll proceed to do our final grind on it and get everything nice, straight, and the way it's supposed to be.
The main reason why I like using the muriatic acid, especially on knives like this that I'm leaving a lot of forged finish on, is because it loosens up the scale and it does a really good job of weakening it. And then I go in with a very aggressive wire wheel and I pretty much just shred it off. So I'm still left with the forged finish, but I'm not left with any of that hard carbon scale that once you clean it off, it just stays like a dark black stain on it versus nice clean steel after you're done with the wire wheel. Overall, I like that process, but it does require you to have a nice, well ventilated area because the stuff is very toxic. So I avoid doing it on camera. I kind of just do it on the side because I have to go outside and then I have to set up the camera and then to mess with the lighting and stuff. So I just kind of do it off camera. But that is something that I do. I recommend it, but be very safe about it because health comes first. Do as I say, not as I do. So now moving on to the handle, I'm using some stainless steel pins, and I'm pairing it with one of these scales that I got sent to by my buddy Mike. If you're interested in checking out his stuff, link in the description to his website, as well as this knife obviously will be for sale, as well as a couple other knives I have on there. If you want to help support the channel, that's a great way to do it. And these handle scales are absolutely beautiful. They are made out of oak and they are a cross cut, and I think they pair very well with this more of a rustic knife. Hand sanding wasn't too bad because I had to hand sand slightly less because I have some forged finish. That's really the reason why I really like the forged finish ones too, because I hate hand sanding, and the least amount of hand sanding I have to do, the happier of a man that I am. So moving on to the handle, this is the portion of the video where I like to ask you to like the video if you like the video. Be sure to check if you're subscribed, if you're watching, if you made it this far into the video, you obviously like what you're watching. So if you want to help support the channel in a very free and very easy way, all you have to do is go and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell icon to make sure you're notified whenever my video come out, because a lot of people aren't notified. I have a whole separate YouTube channel and that one isn't even notified when my videos comes out. I don't know why YouTube does that, but it does that. So try to make sure, if you want to keep up, every Sunday I try to release a video at 7 a.m. Also, as I said before, if you're interested in this knife, it is available online. You can go on ahead and pick it up, as well as a whole bunch of other knives I have there available for sale. I have all kinds of different things. And let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this build particularly, and what you would like to see me make in the future. I'm starting to run out of ideas, so ideas are welcome. I do have a couple different builds planned with some mosaic Damascus, but those take a long time, so having some simpler builds in between are always a plus. Also, if you want to join my Patreon, link is in the description down below. It's a great way to help support the channel, and I will start soon making more educational type videos, step by step, where I can explain to you exactly what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, where I get my materials, where I get all my stuff, and you can ask questions and ask for help there on your builds. So that is something that I'm going to be starting up soon, and I even ordered a mic so that I can explain things better while I'm working. So definitely stay tuned for that if you want to help support on the Patreon. Now back to the build. I'm pretty much done with this handle. I ended up making it incredibly simple. I didn't really do much to it. I just wanted to let the material shine. One thing that I did mess up is that on the back end I didn't pre-finish it, so I had to finish it by hand afterwards because I'm not used to not having to finish the back, because I tend to finish it whenever I finish the knife, and this one has that extra ring which doesn't let me finish it properly. Overall, it was a very fun, simple build that anybody can do at home if you have a small forge and an anvil. As you saw, I didn't really have to use any heavy machinery such as a hydraulic press to build. And as I said, this material definitely hardens very well and stays razor sharp. Overall, it was a very satisfying build and I got a good arm workout in, and I'm very happy with the end result. I like the rustic look of it. It is a great long slicer. I think it is 9.5 inches long, so it's going to be a great slicer, and I just like the rustic look of it, and I like that I kept the spine on there as much as I could. Obviously, I had to grind some out on the handle portion, but I kept the majority of the actual file spine on there as well. Overall, it's a very nice rustic knife, and I'm very happy with it. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.